Assalamu alaikum. Dear students, our today's topic is to study about the biodiversity conservation. What are the methods of biodiversity conservation? You are already aware of the term biodiversity. Biodiversity means the variability of life or variety of life forms that's present on the planet Earth in the form of plants, animals, microorganisms. That's all what we call as biodiversity. This biodiversity is important for us to sustain, or you can say that this biodiversity is essential for the entire human race. It is because of this biodiversity we are able to get the food that we eat, we are able to get the oxygen that we breathe, we are, you know, getting different other products like medicines, paper, rubber, gums, etc. So our life is, directly dependent upon this biodiversity. But we have been, witnessing or noticing that from the past few decades, we are losing this biodiversity at a faster rate, because of the human activities or anthropogenic activities like habitat destruction, deforestation, pollution, conversion of forests into agricultural land, etc. So this biodiversity, we have already lost a considerable number of species in the last few decades, and the experts are predicting that in next 100 years, 50% of the species, may become extinct if the proper measures or proper steps are not taken, at the earliest possible time. We would be losing this biodiversity on which our life is dependent upon. So, what is this biodiversity conservation? Biodiversity conservation is or refers to the protection, upliftment, and management of the biodiversity in order to get the sustainable benefits for ourselves and for our coming or future generations. So, all you can say conservation is the practice of preservation, maintenance, wise utilizations, restoration, and enhancement of the natural environment. Biodiversity conservation has, three main objectives. First objective is to preserve the diversity of species. Second objective of biodiversity conservation is to make sure that there is sustainable utilization of species and ecosystems. Sustainable utilization means judicious use or proper use of the ecosystem so that we can get the benefit out of it, as well as our future generations. So the third main objective of biodiversity conservation is to maintain the life supporting systems. Life supporting systems, means water, oxygen, nutrients on which our life is dependent upon. The methods of biodiversity conservation, so the biodiversity conservation is done, in following ways. First is in situ conservation, or we can say within the habitat conservation. This is also called as on-site conservation. When a species is conserved within its natural habitat, it's called as in situ conservation. And ex situ conservation is off-site conservation, or the conservation that is done outside the natural habitat. That's called as ex situ conservation. Let's discuss the in situ conservation in detail here. Conserving the animals and plants in their natural habitats is called as in situ conservation. For example, if we have to protect the tiger, that's one of the endangered species, that you see these days. In order to protect the tiger, we have to protect or we have to conserve the entire forest, that is, its habitat. So this type of conservation method includes conservation and maintenance of plants and animals in their native ecosystems or natural habitats, you call them. So in situ conservation, what happens is these natural habitats, they are declared as protected areas. All right. So some of the protected areas, have been categorized as national parks. Some are, categorized as wildlife sanctuaries, and some as biosphere reserves. So, what is a national park? National parks, these are small reserves that are meant for the protection of wildlife and their natural habitats. These national parks are maintained by the government. Their boundaries are well demarcated and circumscribed. all right. Or you can say a national park is a park in use that's meant for the conservation purposes, created and protected by the national governments. All right, these national parks ensure high degree of protection to the species because the activities like hunting, fuel wood collection, extraction of other resources, grazing or agricultural activities are not permitted in these areas. All right, all the tourist activities are allowed under the these are allowed in these national parks. And there are some 105 national parks in India, and in these national parks the species or the organisms, they are under the full protection. These are some of the important national parks of India. Jim Corbett National Park being the first national park that was set up in India. And in Jammu and Kashmir, we have some important national parks like Dachigam National Park, that is in district Srinagar, that's 22 kilometers away from Srinagar. And Dachigam is, famous for the conservation of Hangul Kashmir stag. Then we have Salim Ali National Park in district Srinagar, that is important here, that is famous for, musk deer. Then we have Kazinag National Park, that's in district Baramulla. It's famous for the conservation of Markhor. The second, category of protected areas is wildlife sanctuaries. A wildlife sanctuary is meant for the conservation of the wild animals only. Human activities such as timber collection or timber harvesting, cultivation, collection of wood, and other forest products are allowed in wildlife sanctuaries as long as these activities are not interfering with the conservation project. All right, I already told you that these activities are not permitted in the national parks, but in case of wildlife sanctuaries these activities are allowed as long as they do not interfere with the conservation project. But killing, hunting, shooting, capturing of any species of bird or animal is strictly prohibited, or it's not at all allowed. Tourist activities, is allowed in national wildlife sanctuaries. Tourists visit these places for recreation. There are about 516 sanctuaries present in India, that are established in different states. Then we have, third category of protected areas, that is biosphere reserves. They are also called as natural reserves, and these are the multi-purpose protected areas with boundaries circumscribed by the legislation, or you can say the government. The main aim of biosphere reserves is to preserve the genetic diversity in ecosystems by protecting wild animals, traditional lifestyle of the inhabitants. Inhabitants means the people that are living in these biosphere reserves, or you can call them as tribal people, uh, and domesticated plant and animal genetic resources. So in these biosphere reserves, not only plants and animals are protected, but also the humans or the tribal people that are inhabiting these areas or that are living in these areas, they are also protected. These biosphere reserves are scientifically managed. Tourist activities are allowed. There are some 18 biosphere reserves in India that are established by the government. And these biosphere reserves are, divided into different zones. We have core zone, buffer zone, and transition zone. Core zone is the legally protected area, or this is the internal area of a biosphere reserve where human activities are restricted or not allowed. This area is open only for the monitoring purpose, or only the forest officials can, have access to this area, or they can, only forest officials can go in this area, for the monitoring purpose or for the monitoring of the biodiversity. Then the area that's present outside the core area, that's called as buffer zone. And in this buffer zone, uh, activities like, education and research activities, tourist activities, and human settlements, they are allowed in this area as long as these activities are not interfering with the conservation activities of this core area. These activities are allowed in the buffer zone. And transition area is the peripheral area or the outer area of a biosphere reserve where tourist activities are allowed, education and research activities are allowed, and human settlements are there. So this is how zonation or zoning of a biosphere reserve is done. Some important advantage of in situ conservation is that it is cost effective and a convenient method for conservation of biodiversity. In situ conservation, a large number of living organisms can be conserved simultaneously at the same time. That means since the organisms are in natural ecosystem, they can evolve better and can easily adjust to different environmental conditions. All right. Next comes the another method or another method of conservation of biodiversity is ex situ conservation. That means offsite conservation. So in this process of protecting, it is the process of protecting an endangered species of plant or animal outside its natural habitat. So in ex situ conservation, an endangered species or a species that is like facing a threat in the natural ecosystem, it is removed out of its natural habitat and it is kept under the care of humans, or it is kept in captivity, or you also call it as captive breeding. So in ex situ conservation, the conservation is done outside the habitat under the human care. So there is less competition of food, water, space among the organisms, because the organisms, they get all the water, food, shelter, health care by the human intervention, as the organisms, they are kept under the human captivity. So in ex situ conservation, the species are conserved in seed banks, gene banks, botanical gardens, zoos, aquariums, etc. This ex situ conservation has some advantage. In ex situ conservation, the animals are provided with a longer time for breeding activity. The species breed in captivity, and once the population of that particular species, it increases, it goes up, that particular species then can be reintroduced into the wild or in its natural habitat. Genetic techniques can also be used for the preservation of endangered species. So this is all about the methods of conservation of biodiversity. Thank you. Have a nice day.